Just a placeholder, maybe not even lazy editing, but a very deliberately curated piece of information. But if we dig a little deeper into the nature of encyclopedic knowledge itself, this entry for elephant really flips the script, doesn't it? We typically expect, well, definitions, facts, history, scientific classifications, maybe cultural significant stuff. Here we just get pure essence, an acknowledgement that it exists, which then invites us to bring all the information we already have. So, beyond just efficiency, what does this tell us about the purpose of an entry like this in an encyclopedia, especially thinking about how encyclopedias have changed over time?
Yeah, that's a great question. It tells us quite a lot, actually. Historically, encyclopedias aim to be these exhaustive compendiums. They tried to contain all human knowledge between their covers. You think of the 18th century French encyclopedia, vast, incredibly detailed, trying to define absolutely everything.
Massive volumes.
Exactly. But with the digital age and just the sheer volume of information that's available now, the function of an encyclopedia has sort of shifted. It's maybe less about being the sole repository of all facts and more about being a kind of curated gateway to understanding. So a single entry, like elephant, particularly in a modern specialized encyclopedia, it implicitly acknowledges something. It acknowledges that the vast foundational knowledge about the animal is probably readily accessible elsewhere, or that the reader, is likely already familiar with the basics. So its purpose becomes less about defining the thing and more about structuring information, indexing it, and guiding further, more specific exploration within its own comprehensive framework.
Wow, that's a powerful shift. It's not just about what the source says, but what it assumes about us, the audience. But I have to wonder, what are the potential risks of such extreme minimalism? I mean, while it's incredibly efficient for those of us in the know, does relying so heavily on these unsaid implications, does it create barriers? Barriers for someone who doesn't have that pre-existing knowledge, maybe? Or someone coming from a completely different cultural context. What if my mental file cabinet for elephant is, well, pretty empty?
That's an absolutely crucial point, really crucial. The effectiveness of this minimalist approach hinges entirely on that shared implicit understanding you mentioned.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the broader picture of communication in general, it really highlights the potential for misunderstanding, especially when cultural contexts or experiential backgrounds are different.
Yeah.
For someone who has genuinely never encountered an elephant, not in real life, not in media, maybe not even culturally, the word elephant might evoke very little. Or it could even evoke entirely different associations we can't predict. I mean, consider a hypothetical future where elephants are just like mythical creatures from stories.
Like dragons or something.
Exactly. In that scenario, a single word entry would be, well, woefully insufficient, wouldn't it? It really underscores that while brevity can be powerful, it's strategy. It's deployed for a specific audience within a specific context. And it's a good reminder that true understanding requires not just receiving the data, but actually having the necessary framework to interpret it properly.
So it's a kind of tightrope walk, then, between efficiency on one side and inclusivity on the other. This makes me think about how we communicate just every day. Sometimes we get to a point where laying out all the explicit details becomes almost redundant for certain audiences or in specific contexts. It's like saying, I don't know, cloud computing to someone who works in the tech industry. You don't need to define every single component every time.
Right, they get it.
But talk to someone outside that world, and you absolutely need to elaborate, probably quite a bit. This elephant entry really illustrates that principle in its, purest form. It really pushes us to think about the active role we play in constructing knowledge, even when we're given the simplest possible input.
Indeed it does. It forces us to acknowledge that a source isn't merely what's down on the page, explicitly written. It also encompasses everything it implies and everything it evokes in the mind of the person receiving it. This minimalist entry is actually a fascinating little study in semiotics, The relationship between a sign, the word elephant, an object, the actual animal, and an interpretant, the meaning we derive. It's an incredibly dense piece of information, almost poetic in a way, precisely because it leverages the